sense calm, then chaos, then comfort, yet none of it feels yours. What if the storm and the umbrella came from the same hand? If you want immunity from silent chaos, listen closely and stay awake. First, learn the core blueprint, create confusion, control meaning, then claim rescue. This pattern begins with tiny fractures in your certainty and rhythm. Nothing dramatic, only subtle shifts that disturb your internal compass. Your focus scatters, your emotions rise, and your judgment grows soft. In that softened state, suggestions feel safer than independent decisions. The blueprint depends on predictable human reactions under strategic pressure. You will see how each lever targets a natural mental shortcut. Once you recognize the levers, their power dissolves like mist. The initial lever is manufactured instability, a mild break in predictability. Small delays appear, mixed signals appear, answers arrive late by design. Your mind hunts for patterns because the brain hates unfinished loops. That hunt consumes bandwidth and weakens rational boundaries without alarm. You start interpreting noise as signal, which invites guided explanations. Guided explanations rarely serve your interests, they train your reactions. Remember this, instability is not a test, it is a hook. The second lever is emotional inversion, praise and doubt arranged with purpose. Measured approval appears, then quiet disapproval, then neutral silence again. The sequence is never random. It tracks your sensitivity and pace. Your nervous system begins predicting reward and preventing shame. That prediction loop compels compliance faster than direct command. You think you are choosing, you are only regulating discomfort. The loop is efficient because it rides on ancient survival wiring. The third lever is semantic fog. Common words with shifting private meanings. A promise becomes flexible, a boundary becomes discussion, a fact becomes perspective. Definitions slide slowly until arguments defeat themselves through confusion. You defend the wrong point while the frame keeps moving. Exhaustion follows, and exhausted minds trade clarity for peace. Peace offered by the source of fog is not peace. It is a receipt that records your tolerance for distortion. The fourth lever is controlled relief, a curated kindness after planned disorder. A helpful suggestion appears, a solution appears, a calm tone appears. The contrast feels like safety, so you lower your guard. The mind remembers relief more strongly than the earlier disruption. Soon you associate the source of problems with the source of comfort. That association is the quiet contract that grants ongoing influence. Contracts formed under relief feel like gratitude, not control. The fifth lever is attention flooding. Too many signals to process fairly. Messages stack up. Micro-decisions multiply, priorities blur under speed. Your brain defaults to the loudest and newest cue available. Loud and new are engineered to support the intended direction. You feel busy and responsible, yet you are steered gently. Steering through overload works because tired minds prefer shortcuts. The shortcut offered is always the preferred path of influence. The sixth lever is micro-guilt, not direct blame. Only subtle insinuations. Small reminders of your delays, small notes on your tone. You adjust slightly to avoid friction and disappointment. The adjustments accumulate until your baseline identity shifts quietly. Each adjustment is recorded as proof of your cooperative nature. That proof is used to request even cleaner compliance later. You call it harmony. It functions as leverage. The seventh lever is false urgency, a timer that exists only in words. Deadlines appear without external cause. Windows appear without rationale. Fear of missing something important forces premature commitments. Once committed, you defend the choice to protect your ego. The influence then travels inside your defense rather than outside it. The commitment locks you into the frame that created it. Frames once accepted feel like reality, not devices. The eighth lever is selective transparency, a partial reveal to win trust. You receive minor vulnerabilities, small admissions, crafted imperfections. These feel honest, so your guard relaxes naturally. Meanwhile, crucial variables remain hidden behind that honest mask. Partial truth is more persuasive than complete silence. You share more than you planned, thinking reciprocity is ethical. Reciprocity is ethical, yet this version is directional and strategic. The ninth lever is rule confusion. Rules are rigid until suddenly flexible. Flexible until suddenly rigid. Fairness appears conditional and personal. Your mind protests, then spends energy understanding the hidden standard. The standard keeps moving, and your energy keeps spending. You accept inconsistency to keep access and avoid conflict. That acceptance teaches the system how far to stretch you. Stretched people stop noticing distance from their original center. The 10th lever is preemptive framing. The narrative arrives before your perception. You hear a packaged meaning before events fully unfold. The first meaning you hear shapes every later interpretation. This is a primacy effect used with quiet precision. Disconfirming data must fight harder to reach your awareness. While it fights, the frame keeps working like background software. You defend the frame because it arrived first and felt smooth. Now observe the rescue theater, the performance that seals dependence. After waves of manageable chaos, a solution appears like sunlight. The solution feels personalized, empathetic, and fast. You feel seen, you feel guided, you feel grateful. Gratitude covers the earlier engineering, which fades into fog. You accept the rescuer as necessary because relief felt undeniable. Dependency hides inside relief, disguised as a supportive structure. Study the reinforcement schedule. Relief is not delivered every time. Sometimes help is delayed. Sometimes help is enthusiastic. Sometimes minimal. This unpredictability magnifies focus and heightens attachment. Your mind chases the next good moment with more effort. The chase becomes identity, and identity resists change naturally. You defend the system because it now defines your rhythm. Rhythm becomes loyalty, even when logic raises a flag. Recognize the double bind. Any choice appears to cost you something. If you resist, you seem ungrateful or impatient or closed. If you comply, you lose autonomy and future negotiation power. The bind drains confidence more than any single argument could. Fatigued confidence accepts framing rather than building a fresh map. Once the map belongs to the influencer, directions become destiny. Destiny here is only programmed momentum wearing your voice. Notice how protest is pre-labeled as overreaction or misunderstanding. Your calm questions are reframed as hidden aggression or paranoia. That reframing makes you self-police your tone and timing. Self-policing converts your strength into the system's quiet tool. You learn which topics draw fog and which draw relief. You avoid fog by avoiding the topics, thinking you are wise. This avoidance cements the boundaries preferred by the influencer. Watch for reputation triangulation. Others are gently fed selective narratives. You are positioned as valuable yet difficult, caring yet reactive. This prepares the ground so your future concerns appear biased. Now you feel isolated and work harder to appear reasonable. The harder you work, the more the story looks balanced. Balanced stories feel fair, yet they hide engineered asymmetry. Asymmetry grants advantage without visible force or open conflict. Understand the core fuel, unprocessed micro-anxieties within your nervous system. These anxieties love certainty and hate social risk. The blueprint feeds certainty through controlled rescue and framed meanings. It reduces social risk by rewarding compliance with relief. Your biology applauds the pattern because it feels safer. Safety is good. Engineered safety is a negotiated prison. The door looks open, yet your steps follow invisible tape. To break the pattern, begin with internal speed control and naming. Slow the moment, name the lever, and reclaim interpretation. Say quietly to yourself, this is manufactured instability. Say quietly, this is emotional inversion running a reward loop. Naming strips the lever of its mystery and magic. What has no magic becomes a normal signal among many. Normal signals cannot dominate without your repeated permission. Next, separate problems from providers. Evaluate the issue without the rescuer. Ask which part exists independently from their presence and timing. If a problem disappears when the provider steps back, note it. That disappearance reveals a designed dependency seeking permanence. True help reduces chaos created by nature or chance. False help reduces chaos seeded by the helper earlier. Track this difference and your compass begins returning home. Guard your definitions with public clarity and private precision. Write your meanings in plain language and repeat them calmly. When meanings begin sliding, pause and restate your original terms. Do not debate inside fog. Step back to dry ground. Dry ground is shared language verified in simple sentences. The mind breathes better when words stop changing shape. Breathing minds make slower and stronger choices under pressure. Limit your exposure to artificial urgency through staged delays. Create a waiting ritual of counted breaths and written notes. When a deadline appears without proof, insert a planned pause. If the pause triggers accusations, record that reaction carefully. Honest urgency welcomes evidence. Engineered urgency resists accountability. Evidence-friendly environments calm the nervous system and restore agency. Agency is the antidote that disrupts every lever at once. Revise your reinforcement loop. Reward yourself for detection, not compliance. Celebrate moments when you labeled a lever in real time. The brain learns to value awareness over relief and praise. This switch weakens the attraction to controlled kindness. Controlled kindness loses glamour when awareness pays better. You cannot remove the levers from the world. You can remove the invitation within your habits. When micro-guilt arrives, convert it into data rather than confession. Ask what behavior is requested and what pattern it serves. If the answer is vague, hold your position politely. Polite firmness reveals whether care or control stands nearby. Care respects boundaries and clarity without punishment. Control punishes your steadiness because compliance is the goal. Punishment after steadiness exposes the engine behind the mask. Confront reputation triangulation with transparent and quiet records. Document agreements and meanings in simple shared summaries. Share them calmly and routinely, not during conflict spikes. Records reduce the power of narrative drift over time. When stories change, the record stays simple and stable. Stability deprives influence of its favorite fog. Without fog, the stage lights reveal the wires. Rebuild your inner authority through small, non-negotiable practices. Set daily check-ins with your values and thresholds. Decide 3 red lines you will not cross. Repeat them aloud until your nervous system trusts them. Trust allows you to tolerate short-term discomfort without caving. Discomfort tolerated today becomes freedom earned tomorrow. Freedom once felt becomes very difficult to trade. Finally, expect the pushback that follows reclaimed autonomy. The system will offer sweeter relief or sharper pressure. Do not chase sweetness. Do not fear pressure. Measure both. Measurement keeps you in observer mode rather than reactor mode. Observers notice patterns that reactors only feel emotionally. Noticing is the doorway through which chaos loses its script. Through that doorway, you begin writing your own instructions. You now understand the storm and the umbrella are coordinated. You can see the blueprint that welds chaos to comfort. You can interrupt it without noise, without war, without drama. The next reveal shows how silent framing trains entire groups quickly. It explains the signal that tells you a narrative will spread. When you hear that signal, what will you choose to do next? You feel the shift before you can name it. A calm phrase enters and your doubt melts too quickly. If you want to stay unshaped by hidden framing, keep watching the pattern. The silent weapon now is group calibration, influence amplified through numbers. A manipulator rarely works alone. They recruit minds before you notice. The goal is not to convince you directly, but to surround you with agreement. Agreement replaces proof, and social pressure replaces logic. Once the room leans in one direction, your spine follows quietly. This is not weakness. This is ancient survival coding in your brain. Belonging once meant life. Isolation once meant death. The blueprint still runs, but now someone else holds the keyboard. First mechanism, pre-framing through repeated hints planted in many ears. Small remarks, subtle concerns, half compliments with quiet doubt attached. No attack, no accusation, only soft seeds of uncertainty. The power lies in the number of minds hearing the same tone. When they later gather, the seeds bloom at the same time. The room changes before you even enter it. You walk into a climate, not a conversation. Climate decides tone before any word is spoken. Second mechanism, borrowed authority, influence using someone else's voice. They quote a source, a friend, a vague expert, an unnamed group. You hear many people noticed or everyone felt that shift. Suddenly the claim carries weight without a single verified fact. The brain relaxes when it believes it is not alone. Relaxed brains do not investigate, they synchronize. Synchronization is the quiet handshake of group control. Once synced, the crowd becomes the new proof. Third mechanism, strategic silence, no defense, no denial, only withheld answers. Silence forces others to fill the gap with imagination. Imagination is louder than evidence, especially in groups. They say nothing, so the group builds the story for them. The story then returns as common sense. What begins as absence becomes amplified presence. Silence now has more weight than speech ever could. You argue with nothing, and nothing always wins. Fourth mechanism, emotional echo, copying the group's mood to gain trust. If the room is upset, they sigh too. If the room is hopeful, they smile too. Mirroring emotion makes them feel on your side. But their purpose is not to join, it is to steer. Once accepted as one of us, they introduce a small shift in tone. The shift feels natural because the echo felt real. Trust was not earned, it was mimicked. Mimicked trust can still direct decisions. Fifth mechanism, preloaded interpretation. The meaning arrives before the event. You hear, watch how this person reacts under pressure, before pressure even exists. Now every action is processed through a prepared lens. Neutral becomes suspicious. Confident becomes arrogant. Quiet becomes guilty. The lens decides the story, not the event. This is how crowds agree on something that never actually happened. The first narrative always wears the crown. Late truth enters as a guest, not a king. Sixth mechanism, tension bonding. Creating a shared enemy or shared discomfort. Nothing unites a group faster than a mutual threat. The threat can be vague, exaggerated, or completely invented. Once fear is synchronized, obedience becomes collaboration. People think they are helping, but they are simply aligning. Alignment then becomes identity. Identity defends itself. The manipulator no longer needs to control you. The group does it for them. That is the final stage of outsourced influence. Seventh mechanism, moral framing, attaching ethics to compliance. The choice is no longer practical, it is right or wrong. No one wants to be seen as the wrong one in public. The frame turns disagreement into character judgment. Now you defend not your logic, but your morality. Moral pressure is heavier than emotional pressure. Once morality is captured, obedience feels noble. Noble obedience never questions the source of orders. Eighth mechanism, spotlight shifting. One person is quietly marked as unstable. The group watches them more, measures them more, interprets them more. The marked person now feels the invisible camera. Cameras change behavior, even imaginary ones. Any discomfort they show becomes evidence, completing the loop. This loop trains the group without a single open accusation. No one sees the strings, only the reaction. Reaction becomes proof. Proof becomes influence. Ninth mechanism, selective validation. Only certain voices are amplified. Someone speaks, mild applause. Someone else speaks, louder applause. The room learns which direction deserves energy. Soon people speak not to express truth, but to match reward. Rewarded speech becomes the new standard. Silent speech dies. The manipulator never had to silence anyone. The group did it. This is how freedom disappears while everyone still talks. Noise remains, but diversity vanishes. Tenth mechanism, exit cost illusion. Leaving the circle feels expensive. You are told you will lose respect, access, clarity, or connection. No one says you must stay, but the price of leaving feels heavy. The mind stays to avoid invisible loss. Staying then becomes proof the group is right. Proof then repeats the cycle until belief hardens. Belief born from pressure still feels like conviction. Convicted minds police themselves, no guard required. Now understand the master trick. Chaos is personal, but control is social. One mind can resist, 10 minds hesitate, 50 minds obey. The manipulator never needs strong logic, only synchronized emotion. Emotion echoed by many feels like truth. Truth repeated by many feels like law. Law accepted by many becomes invisible. To interrupt the group calibration, break rhythm without breaking respect. Ask for definitions, ask for evidence, ask for source, not to win, but to slow the trance. Trance dies when language becomes specific. People regain their own thoughts when pace drops. Pace is oxygen for crowd influence. Cut the oxygen. Build private reflection before public reaction. Write your view, then speak. Not the other way around. Written clarity resists borrowed emotion because ink does not sway. If someone discourages writing and encourages talk it out, note it. Talking is faster, but writing is harder to hijack. Hard to hijack means hard to control. Watch how your body reacts, not just your mind. If your pulse rises and your words shorten, pause. Your nervous system is sensing group pressure before your logic does. Pause is rebellion. Silence is recalibration. Stillness is shield. Shields do not attack, they only break momentum. Momentum broken, influence weakens. The next reveal exposes the exact signal that tells you a narrative will spread before it even starts. Once you see that signal, you can predict the play before the crowd performs it. Are you ready to see the script before the actors move? You feel a message before you even read it. Your mind prepares an emotion before the facts arrive. If you want to break the spell of preloaded meaning, keep your focus sharp. The next layer is silent narrative engineering. Not what is said, but what your brain is trained to feel before hearing it. This is influence without force. A script planted before the scene begins. Once the emotion is installed, logic enters too late. Late logic fights a battle already lost. First switch, tone priming. Emotion delivered before information. A sigh, a lowered voice, just so you know, whisper. Your nervous system shifts before your mind can evaluate content. Emotion becomes the filter. Facts enter already colored. Colored facts feel true because the feeling arrived first. The order decides the belief, not the proof. Second switch, word magnets. Specific phrases built to drag your focus. People are concerned. Something feels off. Not judging, but noticing. These phrases act like psychological magnets, pulling you into a frame. Once you accept the frame, the story writes itself inside your head. Your brain fills blanks faster than any explanation could. You think you discovered something? You only completed their outline. Third switch, narrative scaffolding. A half story that waits for your mind to finish it. You hear they reacted strangely last time without context. Your brain inserts its own memory, imagination, or bias. The manipulator never lies. They only leave open hooks. You hang your own assumptions on those hooks. Assumptions feel self-created, so you defend them harder. Fourth switch, emotional bookmarks. Small signals attached to ideas. A raised eyebrow with a certain name. A softer tone with another idea. You do not remember the sentence, you remember the feeling. Later, when the topic returns, the feeling returns too. This is how arguments are won without words. Emotion bookmarks beat data storage every time. Fifth switch, contrast anchoring, placing two ideas back to back on purpose. They mention calmness before describing someone as intense. Your brain makes a scale without being asked. The intense person now looks extreme even if neutral. The order manufactured the contrast, not the reality. Contrast feels objective because it happens inside your perception. Sixth switch, selective silence, withholding key variables, but revealing dramatic ones. You hear the reaction but never the trigger. You hear the outcome but not the timeline. Your mind guesses the missing pieces, and the guess becomes belief. Belief formed inside your head feels truer than any external claim. They did not deceive you. They let you deceive yourself. Seventh switch, repetition fog, not heavy repetition, but gentle reappearance. A phrase returns in different formats, different moments, different tones. Nothing stands out, but everything accumulates. The brain trusts familiarity more than accuracy. Familiarity is the back door through which falsehood becomes comfort. Comfortable lies survive longer than uncomfortable truths. Eighth switch, preloaded doubt, not direct accusation, only notice the pattern. Your brain starts searching for evidence of the suggested flaw. Search mode is bias mode. You see what matches the hint. When you notice one matching event, the doubt feels confirmed. Confirmation locks the loop even if the base claim was empty. Empty claims filled with real events look real in hindsight. Ninth switch, moral hijack, attaching personal virtue to a specific belief. The mature ones already understand. The honest people saw this coming. Now disagreement feels like moral failure, not intellectual difference. You argue less to protect your self-image. Self-image defense is stronger than logic defense. The manipulator never won the debate. They won your reflection. 10th switch, future claim trap, predicting your reaction before you react. You will probably deny this. You might think I am exaggerating. Once predicted, any response looks scripted. Agreement proves them right. Disagreement also proves them right. You are caught inside a frame with no exit word. The only escape is stepping outside the conversation itself. Observe the real trick. The story is installed inside you, not on you. You walk away thinking the conclusion was yours. That is the cleanest form of influence, ownership illusion. The mind protects what it thinks it built. To break narrative engineering, reverse the order, demand data before emotion. Ask yourself, how do I feel and why do I feel it? If the feeling came first, pause before accepting the message. Messages born from emotion are rented, not earned. Earned understanding begins with slow thought and steady breathing. Write a simple rule. No emotional conclusion without factual anchor. If someone resists the anchor, the narrative is not information, it is direction. Direction without consent is manipulation, even if polite. Reclaim the pause, the breath, the delay between signal and meaning. Delay kills manipulation more efficiently than argument, because manipulation relies on speed, not strength. Slow minds are unprogrammable. Now prepare for the deeper layer, not personal framing or group syncing, but identity shaping, where the target stops noticing the influence entirely. The question is no longer, what are they making you think, but who are they slowly training you to become? Are you ready to see how identity is edited without force? You notice tiny changes in yourself, not in what you think, but in how you react. If you want to keep your identity untouched, stay fully conscious from here. This stage is identity sculpting, the slow redesign of how you see yourself. Not thoughts, not opinions, but the inner voice that answers, who am I? Once that voice is edited, control is effortless, because you police yourself. No force is needed when the target becomes the enforcer. First layer, subtle self-definitions, placed as compliments or observations. You are the calm one. You always understand people. You never overreact. These lines look positive, but they are invisible cages. You try to maintain the praise, so you adjust your behavior. Your identity begins shifting to match the external script. What feels like kindness is actually calibration. Second layer, selective praise, only rewarding traits that benefit the influencer. You get approval for patience, but not for assertiveness. You are admired for empathy, but not for questioning. Your nervous system learns which version of you receives warmth. Warmth drives repetition. Repetition builds identity. Identity built on external approval is rented, not owned. Third layer, micro corrections, offered as friendly feedback or just being honest. Small remarks reshape tone, timing, and emotional expression. You were a bit sharp there. Maybe you sounded unsure earlier. Correction is disguised as care, so you accept it more easily. Accepted correction becomes personal editing. Over time, the original version of you fades quietly. Fourth layer, internalized permission, waiting for approval before acting. You stop making decisions alone, not because you cannot, but because the internal voice now asks, will this be seen the right way? This hesitation is not fear. It is programmed self-checking. Self-checking becomes lifestyle. Lifestyle becomes identity. Fifth layer, controlled rebellion. Even your resistance is predicted and contained. You express frustration, but only in allowed doses. They let you disagree on safe topics to maintain illusion of freedom. You feel independent, yet the areas you never touch remain untouched. Permissioned rebellion keeps the deeper control invisible. You believe you fought, but only in the ring they built. Sixth layer, meaning replacement. Shifting your values through reframing. Assertiveness becomes harsh, distance becomes cold, patience becomes wise. New labels shape new priorities. You start judging yourself through their vocabulary. When someone else owns the dictionary, they own the direction of your growth. Words are the hands that mold identity. Seventh layer, emotional anchoring, linking certain feelings to certain choices. Guilt tied to disagreement, pride tied to compliance. You begin to predict emotional outcomes before acting. Choices are no longer about truth or logic, but about avoiding inner discomfort. When the feeling decides, the self is no longer free. Freedom without emotional independence is decoration. Eighth layer, invisibility of loss. You do not see what changed, only what remains. Manipulation here does not remove everything, only reshapes priorities. You say, I am still myself, but the scale has moved. You care more about stability than honesty, more about harmony than clarity. The shift was gradual, so it feels natural. Unnatural things done slowly always feel natural. Ninth layer, identity echo. The influencer describes you to others in specific ways. Those descriptions return to you from multiple mouths. You adapt to match the version they spread. Others now reinforce the sculpted identity without realizing it. Influence outsourced, maintenance automated. 10th layer, the final lock. You defend the system that reshaped you, not because you love it, but because leaving it risks identity collapse. You fear that without this influence, you will not recognize yourself. That fear is the proof that the sculpting is complete. A reshaped self does not want freedom. It wants consistency. To break identity sculpting, reclaim the vocabulary first. List the words used to describe you recently. Decide which ones are truly yours. Return the rest like borrowed clothes that never fit. Who you are cannot be decided by repeated compliments. Second, track the source of corrections. If you are only improving in ways that benefit someone else, the improvement is a leash, not growth. True growth expands your choices, not narrows them. Third, practice unapproved decisions. Small ones at first. Choose something without explaining. Justify nothing. Your nervous system will protest because identity wants consistency. But discomfort here is the sound of chains rusting. What feels wrong today may be freedom rewiring itself. Fourth, rebuild internal reward. Praise yourself before anyone else can. Self-validation breaks the cycle of rented identity. When praise comes from inside, external shaping loses grip. Internal applause is the shield every manipulator hates. You now see the architecture, not just thoughts influenced, but the thinker redesigned. The next stage is even deeper, not identity, but reality, perception itself, when you no longer question what is true, because the frame defines reality for you. Are you ready to see how truth becomes an adjustable product? You stop arguing, not because you agree, but because the frame already decided what is true. If you want to reclaim reality from silent editors, stay alert right now. This level is reality bending, not changing your opinion, not changing your identity, but changing the structure of what you believe is possible, real, or worth questioning. Once reality is edited, every decision that follows is already pre-filtered. First distortion, reference collapse. You are given fewer viewpoints but told they are enough. When options shrink slowly, certainty grows falsely. A narrow world feels clear, but clarity without range is obedience. Second distortion, context slicing. You are shown the emotional part of a situation, never the timeline. When cause is hidden, reaction looks unreasonable. Without full context, every judgment becomes a trap. Third distortion, evidence inversion. Proof is dismissed as exception. Rumor is treated as pattern. Your brain starts trusting tone over data. When tone becomes truth, reality becomes flexible. Fourth distortion, certainty theater. Statements spoken with confidence feel more real than facts spoken calmly. Authority becomes volume, not accuracy. The louder voice writes the version history remembers. Fifth distortion, doubt infection. Instead of proving a claim, they only weaken your trust in alternatives. Maybe you don't know the whole story. Maybe that person hides something. Doubt alone is enough to rearrange belief. A shaken truth needs no replacement. It collapses on its own. Sixth distortion, false neutrality. They pretend to be just observing, but the frame leans one way. Bias disguised as balance is the most effective kind. You lower your guard because it seems fair. Fairness without full data is decoration over manipulation. Seventh distortion, memory rewiring. Past events are retold with new tones, new meanings, new emphasis. You start doubting your own recollection, and once memory is unstable, truth becomes negotiable. Eighth distortion, impossible comparison. You are asked to choose between unstable reality and their version of clarity. The brain picks the simpler story, even if false. Simplicity wins over truth when pressure is high. Ninth distortion, perception outsourcing. You stop asking, what is true, and start asking, what do they think is happening? Truth becomes secondhand, filtered through someone else's lens. Outsourced perception is the death of independent thought. 10th distortion, truth fatigue. So many frames, hints, emotional cues, and contradictions appear that your mind gets tired of evaluating. Tired minds accept whatever is easiest to believe. Ease becomes the new truth. To break reality bending, rebuild your anchor points. 1. Write facts before feelings. Emotion after data, not before it. 2. Separate what happened from what was suggested. If a detail came from someone's tone, not evidence, label it. 3. Reclaim the right to say, I don't know yet. Rush is the enemy of truth. 4. Store memories in writing before they get edited by repetition. Paper does not bend under pressure. 5. Do not debate inside the frame. Question the frame itself. The frame is the real battlefield, not the topic. You now understand how reality itself can be engineered. But one final stage remains, the deepest layer of all, when the manipulator no longer needs to influence you, because you continue the system by instinct, even in their absence. The last question is the hardest. What happens when the prison keeps running even after the guard leaves? You think you are finally free, but the same reactions still repeat inside you. If you want real liberation, you must now face the system that lives in your own habits. This final layer is self-sustaining control, the moment when the manipulator no longer needs to push, because you have learned to push yourself in the same direction. No pressure is required, no correction is needed. You have absorbed the rules, the tone, the timing, the limits. What was once external influence has become internal routine. First loop, inherited self-monitoring. You adjust your words before speaking to prevent trouble, but the trouble no longer exists. Only the habit remains. Fear of past reactions still edits your present choices. Second loop, invisible loyalty. You defend the old system even when it harms you because you tied your identity, your pride, your intelligence to it. Leaving feels like admitting you were controlled, so you stay. Third loop, preemptive compliance. You follow rules no one is enforcing anymore because your mind still expects reward or punishment. The prison survives in the fear of a door that is already open. Fourth loop, internal critic with a borrowed voice. You hear a judgment in your head that is not yours, a tone, a phrase, a standard that echoes someone else. The critic lives on even after the creator is gone. Fifth loop, comfort addiction. Chaos and relief became a cycle. Now silence feels wrong and peace feels suspicious. You look for problems just to feel familiar again. Sixth loop, selective blindness. You catch manipulation in others, but not in yourself. Your mind protects the final illusion, I was always in control. That illusion is the last chain. Seventh loop, self-dismissal. Every time truth gets close, you say, maybe I am overthinking. Doubt becomes the guard that keeps awareness outside the gate. Eighth loop, emotional inheritance. You now use the same tactics on yourself or others. Not to manipulate, but because the pattern feels normal. What was once control now looks like personality. Ninth loop, freedom anxiety. When influence fades, you feel empty, not free. You crave direction, even if it costs autonomy. The system trained you to fear self-authority. 10th loop. Unconscious continuation. You become the next messenger of the same psychological architecture, passing it forward without intending to. The blueprint survives through behavior, not belief. To break the final layer, you do not fight the manipulator. You uninstall the pattern from inside yourself. Step 1. Name the voice. Ask, does this thought sound like freedom or conditioning? Anything that demands obedience without reason is a leftover script. Step 2. Reteach your nervous system. Peace is not danger. Stillness is not threat. Train your body to feel safe without external approval. Step 3. Rebuild choice muscle. Make small decisions that feel wrong only because they are new. Newness is not danger, it is oxygen. Step 4. Stop policing your own emotions. You are allowed to disagree. Change your mind. Say no. Feel anger. Emotions are signals, not crimes. Step 5. Rewrite identity from the inside out, not I am what they said I am, but I am what I choose repeatedly with awareness. Step 6. Cancel the unseen contract. You owe no loyalty to a system that survived by shrinking you. Loyalty without freedom is a decorated cage. Step 7. Replace reaction with observation. Every time you feel the old pull, say, this is a trace, not truth. Naming breaks automaticity. Step 8. Forgive your old self. You were not weak, you were human. Influence works because the human mind is wired for safety. Now you build a safety that does not cost freedom. Step 9. Practice internal permission. You do not need to be chosen, approved, or justified. The final freedom is self-issued authorization. Step 10. Remember the rule of exit. You are free the moment you stop playing the role they trained you to guard. The blueprint is now fully revealed, from chaos creation to identity sculpting to reality bending and finally to self-sustaining control. The last question is no longer, how do they control you? But how long will you keep the program running after they are gone? When silence returns, when no voice tells you who to be, will you wait for orders or finally write your own instructions? The exit door is open, but only you decide when you walk through it.